Hey guys, welcome to 6 Minutes for Tuesday, October 18th. I'm Jason Fulmore, SC Russell, and today we're breaking down some of the numbers from this past Super 32, like I did about a week ago, to provide context for the pre-seeds and that sort of thing leading up to Super 32. I decided to go ahead and grab as much information, as much data as I could from this past Super 32 to talk about kind of what happened and whether the seeds ended up being good or not good, and kind of what we saw happen from a numbers perspective. So let's begin with the ones versus the twos. And as you can see, we actually had 7 instances where we had the number 1 seed and the number 2 seed make it all the way through the bracket. And 106, 26, 52, 70, 82, 220. And for the most part, the ones won most of those matches. They didn't win all of them. Bo Bassett beat Anthony Knox at 113. That was definitely one that went the way of the twos over the ones. But for the most part, and let's be honest, to be able to get the top 2 kids seated correctly in half of the weights to get to a 1 versus 2 matchup, I mean, really, honestly, is really pretty good. And I would think that it's actually more difficult at a place like Super 32 than it is at a regular tournament, where we kind of see that. Now, there might be more inconsistencies with kids who are at a regular tournament, so on and so forth. But the level of the difference between the top, say, probably 8, 10, 12 kids isn't huge. So getting that right in terms of getting those individuals in those places, I thought Willie Saylor did a really, really good job. So we had 7 instances of 1 versus 2. Now, a couple of not criticisms, but a couple things to note. There were just three weight classes where we had, like, it kind of went to chalk. I mean, it didn't go perfectly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, obviously. But there were 3 weight classes, 106, 132, and 152, where the weights, nobody made the podium who wasn't a single-digit seed, so 1 through 9. And you would think that maybe that would be higher. You would expect that to be higher, but again, I'm not 100% sure. That, again, that's pretty hard to do. And yeah, so again, 3 of 14 weights that had single digit, and they pretty much went to expectation, or they went as expected. A couple of things that are interesting to note: Pennsylvania actually led the way this year in the number of champions. They had 2, and then there were 12 states that had a single champion. So we didn't have a ton. And I don't remember back to what last year's numbers were, but Pennsylvania ended up not, I think, having a champion a year ago. So this year with 2, that was big. It was also big in that they had 20 that finished in the top 8, which was fantastic. And as you can see from the list, California came in second with 10. Then you had New Jersey and Ohio, each with 9. And Florida actually rounded out the top 5 with 6 that were that finished in the top 8. So again, we saw other groups do well. Georgia, I think, had a handful as well, and I know North Carolina had one. Trying to think off the top of my head if Tennessee ended up putting anyone on the podium or not. Alabama did not. South Carolina did not. But yeah, so those are kind of your breakdowns by state, which is really interesting. And now let's jump to kind of some of the anomalies that happened within the tournament some of the things I thought were really interesting. And that is, first and foremost, there were 13 double-digit seeds that made the top 8. And I'm going to go ahead and tip the cap to the Florida kids, because there were 3 Florida wrestlers that were seeded 11th that ended up in the top 8, led by Sebastian De Janeiro, who was 3rd at 113, Cooper Haas, who was 4th at 145, and then Brian Bubarija, who ended up, I think he ended up 6th at 195. So 11 seeds, those double-digit seeds there. Florida had 3 of them. All 3 of those 11s ended up coming in and making the top 8. So that's 3 out of your 13. And the other 10, even though they're not from the Southeast, I think it's really important to kind of talk about. Number 1 is Marcelo Milani and Noah Nininger. Both of them were seated pretty high, at least outside of the top 8. Both made the podium. Drew Heathouse from Michigan at 126 was seated 10th, ended up taking 7th. Colin Arch from Missouri in the weight that probably, well, one of the weights that kind of blew up a lot, which was 138. They actually had 3 double-digit seeds that made the top 8. Colin Arch, Grigor Chikolian from California, and Cameron Catrabone from New York all made the top 8 at 138. 145, we already talked about Cooper Haas coming in 11th and then taking 4th. At 160, you got Sam Going from Indiana, who ended up 4th at 160. At 170, you had Abraham Wojcicki from Illinois, and I slaughtered that last name, I'm quite sure. I think he was seated 13th and finished in the top 8. And then you got, several others who did the same thing. It would be interesting. I would think that I think it's Brock Zarowski from New Jersey, who wasn't seated in the top 8 a year ago and made top 8. Well, he wasn't seated in the top 8 this year, and he made the top 8. So if he's back next year, I think Willie might want to go ahead and put him in the top 8. Go ahead and seat him in the top 8 because he's now done it twice. And then last but not least, it's always fun to look at those bracket busters, those individuals that came in unseated and made a run through the tournament to make the top 8. Doesn't happen very often. I think it happened 7 times a year ago. Well, it happened 7 times again this year. And the person that probably, well, first let's talk about our Southeast wrestler that made the top 8 who was unseated, and that was Nathan Carnes from North Carolina. Wrestled really well, came in 7th at 285. But the one wrestler who really, really showed out and kind of came in and wrestled exceptionally well was Tyler Eyes from Colorado. He was unseated and ended up 3rd at 170 pounds. You can see O'Keefe at 113. You can see Tahir Parkins from Pennsylvania at 126. Dom Frontino from Pennsylvania also finished 8th at 160. You got Miles Johnson from Ohio. And finishing it out was Devin Kendricks from Indiana. So a really good tournament for the seeding, at least in my opinion. It's pretty difficult, as I said before, to get it that close. Now, I also want to say that obviously putting them in certain seeds has kind of dictates a little bit of the tournament as well. So certainly that should be kept in mind as well. But when you see it out of 16 and you get back, 3 weight classes that all have single-digit seeds making the top 8, and we could probably sit down and figure out the probability that were to happen. I think that would probably be pretty interesting to look at. certainly the ones versus the twos were a consideration. And overall, I thought the tournament was seated pretty well. Pretty happy with certainly the 11 seeds from Florida all pushing through and not only making the podium, but finishing quite high on the podium with some super good wins. Anyway, that's your 6 minutes for today, and I hope you tune back in. I don't know if there's going to be one tomorrow, but later this week I will head to Bruton Parker for their intra-squad match. Hopefully get a chance to sit down with Coach Dodgens and have a quick conversation about what this year looks like, and maybe give you guys some video of that intra-squad match that happens on Thursday. So it won't happen. I won't get it posted till at least Friday, but look for something in the future. Hope you guys have a good one. Take care.